Welcome to the video for Lecture 2.2, in which we discuss carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are an important source of nutrition, and while we often think about foods with simple carbohydrates, such as grain products, fruits and vegetables are also an important source of carbohydrates, with vegetables generally being higher in complex carbohydrates such as fiber. Our learning objectives for this video are to define carbohydrates and recognize their general structure, distinguish between monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, and understand the functions of the different types of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are chains of carbon with both hydrogen and oxygen attached. There is generally a 1:2:1 ratio for carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So the chemical formula for most carbohydrates would be CH2O in a chain of at least 3 carbons. A good way to remember this ratio is to break carbohydrates down into the word carbon for 1 carbon, and hydrate, which would make us think of water, which is 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. The general function of carbohydrates is to serve as an immediate energy source for most living things, and that's probably why foods that have simple carbohydrates, such as bread, rice, and potatoes, form the basis of meals in many different cultures. More complex carbohydrates can also function as structural components in cells. Like most macromolecules, carbohydrates have a monomeric form and a polymeric form. Carbohydrate monomers include both monosaccharides and disaccharides. Mono means 1 and di means 2. Saccharide means sugar, which is why we generally equate carbohydrates with sugar. The monomers are what we are referring to when we talk about simple carbohydrates. Carbohydrate polymers are called polysaccharides, with poly referring to multiple. These are essentially monosaccharides and disaccharides being combined together covalently into many repeating units, and this is what we are referring to when we talk about complex carbohydrates. Let's discuss each of these in more detail. First, monosaccharides. Monosaccharides again refer to there being just one sugar molecule. They generally have 3 to 6 carbons and are often in a cyclic form, which forms a ring. One way to identify monosaccharides and carbohydrates in general is that their names usually end in "-ose". Glucose, for example, is a monosaccharide and is in fact the preferred energy source for most cells. We will learn more about how it is broken down to obtain energy in our cellular respiration lecture. The chemical formula for glucose is C6H12O6, which matches our CH2ON formula, with N being 6. It generally forms a ring, although one of the components of the ring is an oxygen, and there is a carbon sticking out here. Glucose has many different isomers. Isomers are molecules that have the exact same chemical formula, but have a different structural arrangement. Fructose and galactose are both examples of isomers of glucose. Fructose still has 6 carbons, but is actually arranged into a 5-ring structure, again with oxygen being one of the components of the ring, and the other 2 carbons sticking out here and here. Galactose looks very similar to glucose, with the main difference being that the direction of the hydrogen and hydroxyl groups on these carbons specifically is the opposite of how it is in glucose. Disaccharides are made by covalently bonding 2 different monosaccharides together. The monosaccharides must be different, because if it was just the same monosaccharide repeating, that would be a polysaccharide. When plants need to transport sugar to its different parts, it usually converts its sugars into this form because it is more stable. Sucrose is a disaccharide made by combining glucose and fructose, and is usually what we think of when we say sugar. As we saw in the previous video, they are combined by dehydration synthesis. The H and hydroxyl group in red show the parts of each molecule that will leave as a water molecule. The loss of 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen is why sucrose has a chemical formula of C12H22O11 instead of C12H24O12. Polysaccharides are created by linking multiple monosaccharides or disaccharides as a repeating unit together. Some polysaccharides are used for energy storage, while others are used to build structural components. Polysaccharides used for energy storage include starch, which is composed of amylose and amylopectin and used by plants, and glycogen, which is used by animals. All of these are created by linking multiple glucoses together, represented by these little hexagons, but amylose is linear, while amylopectin is more branched. Glycogen is similar to amylopectin, but is even more highly branched. Polysaccharides used as structural components include cellulose, which is an important component of plant cell walls and provides these celery stalks with their rigid structure, and chitin, which is used by fungi and also for insect exoskeletons. As you can see here, cellulose is also created by repeating units of glucose. Like amylose, it is linear, but the type of glucose used makes it denser and more compact, and allows for strong hydrogen bonding between each chain. As a result, it is far more difficult to digest compared to other carbohydrates, and humans are unable to digest it. However, it does have other benefits, and is one of the things we refer to as dietary insoluble fiber, which is why it's important to eat vegetables that are high in cellulose, such as celery. In this video, we learned that carbohydrates are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and usually have a ratio of 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. They can be found as monomers, which includes monosaccharides and disaccharides, or polymers called polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are generally used as a source of energy, while disaccharides are used as a way to transport carbohydrates throughout a plant. Some polysaccharides are used as energy storage, while others are used as structural components for the cell, such as the cell wall. That's it for this video, and thanks for watching.